So Porktoberfest was absolutely incredible. I think it's pretty clear that farming the way Brooks does farm at North Mountain Pastures is the best for developing a good solid ecosystem and in turn producing a healthy soil and grass for the animals to consume. So it was so fun, great community feeling, great food, great atmosphere, great farm. The whole event was just awesome. So I always recommend going up to the farm day at Porktoberfest at North Mountain Pastures. There's always something to learn from Brooks and his family, and there's always something to learn from his farm and the way he treats his animals and the way he raises his products. So check that out in the future. NorthMountainPastures.com. Peace.
We have, I think, 6 of these right now. We kind of build like one a year just to have plenty of pasture shelter for any animal. And the idea with building them this big and out of steel was that we could use them for lambs, for pigs, for turkeys, for chickens, for whatever. So you can see the big barrels on the inside there. The barrels have water in them and they have a float valve. And so the water, we have a well drilled over here, and then we have water running underground to pretty much all of our fields, and it runs out, fills up those 55-gallon drums, and then it gravity feeds down into a drinker inside there. I would be fine with us going in there if these two dogs weren't here right now, but these guys are generally friendly, but with kids and stuff around, I'm going to say just stay over here. So we have our chickens outside from 4 weeks on. So we have them in a brooder, which we'll go see in a minute, up until 4 weeks, just to get them big enough so that if there's a rainy day or it gets a little bit chilly or anything like that, these guys can handle being outside. They get their feathers. Once they have all their feathers in, they're fine to be out here. The idea of pulling them from spot to spot, you guys can see up on the top of the hill there, that real green band across that whole strip of hillside. We graze the very top of the hill, so our property goes up and over the ridge right there. We graze that whole top for the first 4 months of the season, and then we grazed across this hillside, and now we're coming kind of back across here with the chickens. And what that does is it pretty much deposits all of their manure on top of whatever we're grazing. So sometimes we'll be grazing something that we've already grazed down with lambs, or we've already grazed down with pigs or cows or whatever other species, and then we'll run the chickens through there, and they'll scrape through, you know, whatever's left and eat some bugs, eat some little critters, whatever's in there. This whole area though, we try and leave at least one big pasture that we don't graze at all for the whole year. So this was the pasture that we didn't graze for the whole year, and the reason for that is we like to have a spot where you get a whole bunch of wildlife just kind of blossoming in there. And so we'll have, just about every day we come through here, there's praying mantises flying back and forth, there's grasshoppers everywhere, there's crickets everywhere. And so there you go, there's praying mantises everywhere, like this guy right here. So there's a lot of wildlife in here. And the other thing that it does is, you know, the grass is, you can see it over here, the grass gets this tall, and that means the roots are going down that deep too. So those roots are going way down, they're pulling up nutrients that, you know, you wouldn't get if the roots were only this deep, and it's building topsoil. So any of that carbon that gets sucked in from the air by the plant, 'cause that's what plants are good at, right, is they pull carbon from the atmosphere for photosynthesis. And they pull that carbon, so fixing carbon, right? Like the big buzzword for climate change is trying to fix carbon back into the soil. They pull that carbon down into the soil, and then when we lay it down like this, you can see that kind of brown grass. That's all carbon. And when you lay it down, and then you have the manure right on top of it, it essentially composts. You have the carbon, you have the nitrogen from the manure, and that turns into compost, which essentially becomes like a new layer of topsoil. So the chickens are healthy and happy because they've got what they're supposed to eat, which is a whole bunch of bugs and forage and weeds and seeds and things like that. And then the big thing is the soil's happy, right? Because we've got all kinds of diversity in the soil now. We've got that real nice healthy dose of carbon in there. We've got the nitrogen from the chicken manure. and we just, you know, build that topsoil every year. The other big thing is it's all perennial, right? So we'll graze pigs through here sometimes, and when the pigs come through, we'll seed some annuals in. But 99% of what's in here is perennial, which means that you're never doing any tillage, so you're never stripping off any nutrients. We're never losing anything, which is a big deal considering how steep this whole farm is, right? You wouldn't want to till a whole lot here because you'd have a lot of runoff and you'd lose a lot of your topsoil. What we've done to kind of, in addition to doing all the grazing that we do, is these trees here, these are apple trees, and they're planted onto a swale. So there's a big ditch right behind those apple trees that's dug into the hillside on contour. So if you guys have ever seen like a topographical map where the contour kind of shows you, you know, what the height above sea level is, that is level the whole way across, so that when it rains, the rain sheds down, hits that contour, and it spreads out across the whole hillside, which means that we're essentially running water uphill. We're running water to areas on the farm that normally wouldn't have water run to them. That means those trees get a lot of water, those trees are happy, those trees are healthy, and long term we'll have, those apple trees will be as big as this pear tree behind you right here, and our pigs will run underneath that thing as the apples are falling in the fall, and they'll get a whole bunch of forage off of that. Turkeys and chickens will come through afterwards, as there's a whole bunch of worms and bugs in those you know, rotting apples, and they'll dig through all that stuff too. So just kind of encouraging diversity, more of a sort of savanna type ecosystem, like you know, not just open grassland, but trees and grassland together, which is one of the most productive ecosystems you can have, really. So yeah, this is like the basis of pretty much everything we do. Is we kind of figure that we're grass farmers, right? We're growing grass, and we have a nice byproduct of really good meat that comes out of it too. So.
Grass farmers are the best.
What's that?
Grass farmers are the best.
Grass farmers are the best.
How frequently?
These guys are moved every day. So two ways we do it. The way we've done it most of this year is with skid steer, the machine you guys see right down there. The nice thing about that versus the tractors, it's hydraulic powered, and so you can just barely touch the controls, and you just kind of creep backwards. And then we have this thing right here, which my son loves to use. You just shake this. For whatever reason, they hate this sound. Chickens don't like this sound. And you just shake this behind the chickens and they run forward. And so it works for chickens, it works for turkeys, it works really well for pigs too. So this is just, we call this the sorting paddle. Last year I built these solar powered winches that we had, where we'd charge 2 batteries on the winch, and then we'd anchor the winch out in the field and pull it forward. And they work great. I just had to fix them, and I was the only person working on the farm this year, so I didn't have time to repair them throughout the season. So.
You don't like his hat?
Yeah, right.
What kind of dogs are these?
These guys are called Maremas. So these are an Italian breed, and their instinct is essentially to have like a 3-mile radius that they roam and protect. So they're Sicilian. You've probably seen other ones that look like this. They're called Great Pyrenees.
Yes, I've seen those, yeah. But they're much bigger than you. They're wider and fatter.
Yeah, they're about 20% bigger than these guys. Yeah. Yeah, they live in here with the chickens. Yeah, and they get guts from chicken processing. They get bones. They get smoked meat. Whatever's left over at the end of the day.
No foxes.
Probably kill some groundhogs. There's definitely not any foxes in here. Yeah. The only problem is the male, the one in the back there, who's kind of right here, he's about to lay down.
Yeah.
He gets out of everything. So when we try to put him in with the turkeys, he just jumps right out. Oh. And so we can't keep him in there. And so right now we're like, there are some either feral cats or foxes out there with the turkeys, you know. And so we should have one of them out there, but we can't keep him in quite as well as we should be able to. All right, so that's these guys. You can. Yeah. This is my shipping container addiction area. I love these things because we tried having like several spots for brooders. If you guys know what a brooder is, it's like a place where you have small poultry or small animals until they're big enough to essentially go outside, right? So we went through many versions of brooders, and all of them got cats or rats or raccoons or any kind of small mammal you can think of that would think that little tiny peeps are tasty. All figured out ways to get in. So I found a guy who sells shipping containers, and these are watertight. They're airtight, watertight. And so what we did is I started putting these are there's only chicks in the far end because we're at the end of our season right now. So there's 2-week-old chickens at the far end, which you guys are welcome to go down and check out after a minute here. But these are on pulleys. They're on a pulley system, and there's the brooder bulbs underneath the brooders, and they're on a thermostat. So it's 4 inches of foam insulation, so it keeps the heat down near where the chicks are, and you can adjust that brooder up and down based on the level of the bedding. So the bedding kind of gradually builds up over time as we're adding bedding over the year. At the end of the year, all this poultry litter comes out, which it's peat moss and manure. All this comes out, we compost it, and then it goes back onto the field or in our garden or wherever. So all of this stuff gets reused on the farm somewhere. The really fun thing about this is I got to buy a plasma cutter. And I have a welder to make all this stuff happen. I would advise you, if you get a plasma cutter, to not hold the metal on the opposite side of the plasma cutter with your hand. Doesn't hurt really bad, but it definitely puts a hole in your finger for a little while. It's nice and cauterized, but it's not very fun. So we keep these guys in here for 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the time of the year. And then, if you guys can see that, I call that the hog crate right there, the thing next to the white trailer. We just park that here. My son and I go in with those sorting paddles that we were telling you about, and we just kind of herd them up into there. And then we drive out into the field, open the door, and they come out and they go into the field. So a lot less than what we used to do, which was we took those crates right there, those chicken crates, and we would catch them all by hand, put them in there by hand, drive them out to the field, and unload them by hand. So these are all the things that kind of make this all possible, are these little innovations that we gradually get over time, because there's no set infrastructure for pastured livestock farming, right? So we either make it ourselves, we adapt to whatever exists already, or generally we rig something and we just do it, we go. So that's the method for getting these guys in here and out to pasture. And you guys are welcome to go in there and check these out. I'll explain this pen over here real quick before you guys do that, because I was told to keep this tour short. So this is our weaning pen over here for the piglets. This is where the piglets go after they have been on their mother, and we hand feed in here every day so that they're used to us coming in there with them. And that makes them calm down a whole bunch, because when they're just out with their mom on pasture, they have free choice feed and they're kind of all just running around like crazy. So we bring them all back to this spot, train them to fence in here, get them used to us going in there with them every day, and then we move them out to pasture. And so those guys up top over there who are kind of standing there staring at us, those are like our feeder pigs who are going to go to the butcher. So those are 150 to 200 pound pigs up there.
So what age do you move them off the mom?
So they move off the mom between 6 and 8 weeks. Typically I try and make it when they're about 30 to 35 pounds. So size is the bigger thing. Some of them take a little bit longer than others. I found that if they're 30 or 35 pounds, they're pretty much ready to get weaned, and they'll be good and healthy. So you guys are welcome to check these guys out. The only other thing that's in through this gate, you guys can go in through this gate and check out there's turkeys down past there. I'm going to stop the tour here, and we're going to go over and get the Highland games set up. There's going to be music up in the barn too. So check out the animals. The chickens are here. If the kids want to go in here and pick up a peep, they're welcome to. And we'll meet you guys back over at the barn.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So can you guys want to go and see the baby chicks? Round up the pigs?
Come on.
Not those ones, no. And really, the pigs don't have as much of the